I need to turn it on. Is the mic on? Okay. Good morning. I'm Stacy Lieberman, Deputy Director of the Broad, and I'm so pleased to welcome you here today for Art, Culture, and Community, Eli Broad and Dominic in Conversation. This conversation launches an important and unparalleled 10-year relationship with East West Bank as the Broad's leading partner. East West Bank and the Broad are aligned on many levels with a deep and shared commitment to this region and to public accessibility to the arts. As leading partner of the Broad, East West Bank will help us build upon our initial success, during which we have welcomed more than 1.2 million visitors since opening in September of 2015. East West Bank support will be dedicated to several aspects of our very innovative museum programming, as shown in the images presented just a few moments ago. Our ongoing collections-based exhibitions like Oracle, which is currently on view, ticketed live programs like Summer Happenings at the Broad, which bring the museum to life with music, dance, and spoken word, our free family weekend workshops, and our innovative school programs, Art and Story, and Art and Rhyme, through which we welcome thousands of students from across the Los Angeles region for interactive visits on weekday mornings before we open to the public. A visit to the Broad is often the first visit to a museum for these students, and I know East West Bank is thrilled to help support this impactful program. Since many of you have been to the museum and have experienced our exhibitions and our events, but have not yet had the opportunity to witness these Art and Story and Art and Rhyme programs, we invite you to listen in as students and their teacher from Bunch Elementary in Compton visit the Broad and talk about the role of art and the Broad in their lives.
Now, if you guys do have any questions about anything on your visit, maybe even about some of the work, feel free to ask us. We're all pretty knowledgeable. Say right.
Today we are at the Broad and we're here to see some art. Oh, I see it. I've been here twice and I decided to come here again because I want to be inspired more by all these paintings.
So this whole room right here, the artwork is who? Who do you guys see? Go look, go look. Today at the Broad Museum, we're experiencing Art Plus Story, where the children get to come to this wonderful museum and let it be their environment, like a playground, you can say, for their imagination and to inspire their creativity. From there, they get to really interpret what the artwork means to them.
Like that little piece right there that connects to that piece. I love art. It just inspires me. Art is uniting people. Art is bringing people together. It's not like art is having, you have to stay on this side to have this art, stay on this side. Art, you can do whatever art, and you can be inspired, and you can inspire other people with art. It's very fantastic. Art is revolutionizing my life.
The only thing that I really like about it is that it's diverse. It's not really just one painter or mostly a certain group of painters. It's like different. I am an artist. This trip has expanded my horizons on what art actually is. The museum's actually really good. I would like to come back like without the school, just by myself.
I really want to be a photographer when I'm older. Photography is a form of art. I'm fascinated by the arts and I'm very passionate about what I want to be when I'm older.
We extend our very deep thanks and gratitude to East West Bank for their generous commitment as the Broad's leading partner, supporting our mission to make art accessible to the widest public possible. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today's program. Eli Broad is the founder with his wife Edie of the Broad. During his 5-decade career in business, he built 2 Fortune 500 companies, KB Homes and Sun America, from the ground up. Mr. Broad was the founding chairman and is a life trustee of the Museum of Contemporary Art, a life trustee of the Museum of Modern Art, and the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Today, the Broads are devoted to philanthropy as founders of the Broad Foundations, which they established to advance entrepreneurship for the public good in education, science, and the arts. Over the past 5 decades, the Broads have built a collection of more than 2,000 works by over 200 artists, considered to be among the most prominent collections of post-war and contemporary art worldwide. Dominic, Inc. is the chairman and chief executive officer of East West Bank. Headquartered in California, East West Bank is a top-performing commercial bank with exclusive focus on the U.S. and Greater China. It has been ranked among the 25 largest banks in the United States by market capitalization and has been selected in the top 15 of America's 100 best banks by Forbes since 2010. Mr. Inc. was named by Forbes as one of the 25 most notable Chinese Americans and one of the 100 most influential people in Los Angeles by the Los Angeles Times. Mr. Inc. serves on the board of Mattel and is also a member of the University of Southern California's Board of Trustees. Joanne Heyler, founding director of the Broad and director and chief curator of the Broad Art Foundation, has worked closely with the Broad since 1995. Under her direction, the collection has grown from 500 works to the more than 2,000 today. Joanne has helped to advise the Broads as their philanthropy in the visual arts has grown in recent decades, culminating nearly 2 years ago in the opening of the Broad. As founding director of the Broad, she has fulfilled the Broad's vision for the museum, making their incredible collection accessible to as many people as possible. Joanne will be facilitating this morning's conversation with our 2 distinguished leaders. Please join me in welcoming Eli Broad, Dominic, Inc., and Joanne Heyler.
Well, thank you very much for that warm welcome, and welcome especially and good morning to
Good morning.
Good morning.
Eli and Dominic. Wonderful to have you here. It's a really rare opportunity, I think, to bring you both together. You are 2 businessmen based here in Los Angeles who have demonstrated such a deep dedication to making life better in Los Angeles in many ways, but of course today we're particularly focused on how that happens in the realm of arts and culture. And I thought I would start in the perhaps most obvious, but perhaps very informative place of your personal histories, your childhoods, how you grew up, where you grew up. I thought I'd start with you, Eli, if you don't mind.
I grew up in Michigan and Detroit, although I was born in New York City. Went to public schools, went to Michigan State University, got a degree in accounting with a minor in economics, and that career lasted about 2 years. Then I became an entrepreneur, initially in home building. So that was my second career, and then in financial services, Sun America. And about 15 years ago, left the world of commerce and spent all my time at our foundation, which is involved in education reform, the arts, scientific and medical research.
That's a long arc. Very succinctly put. And Dominic?
I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and came from a big Catholic family. So we have 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. I'm the youngest in the family. So every one of our brothers, sisters, myself, all went through Catholic schools, like elementary Catholic school, high school Catholic. So that's why I'm always guilty. So when my brother, my eldest brother was the first one that actually got the opportunity to go to college in U.S.
And of course, he was recommended to go to a Jesuit school, Loyola Marymount. At that time, it's called Loyola, I think. He found that the tuition is a little bit way too expensive. So when he went for his master's degree study, he found a school in Texas, University of Houston. Actually, all the schools in Texas at that time, if a foreign student worked more than 20 hours a week on campus, you get in-state tuition. So it's at $4 a credit. So it's a pretty good deal, unheard of today, But so he was able to go to University of Houston and then get a master's degree and also basically pay for everything. So when I went to U.S. for college, so obviously the only wise choice, according to my brother, was University of Houston. That's how I ended up in Houston, And so the rest is history, from Houston, and then I start, getting to work.
I would think the only things Hong Kong and Houston have in common is the first letter of the name of the city. It's interesting to me in getting to know you, Dominic, and of course I've known Eli for many decades. It's interesting to see commonalities in your backgrounds. You grew up on 2 different continents, but in terms of education and business, there's some similarities, and then particularly in really starting in the fundamentals of business, in accounting. Those were the roots of each of your careers. And I think that's an interesting commonality that you have. Does that in any way inform, do you think, and you're both self-made, completely self-made, started from fairly modest backgrounds. And does that inform how you approach philanthropy and cultural institutions?
Well, we try to use what we've learned in the world of commerce and apply the best practices to cultural institutions and education, scientific and medical research. So accounting was a very, very good foundation for all the things we've ended up doing.
And I would think that the challenge of launching your own career, starting your own business, cultural institutions also are often reinventing themselves and evolving, and bringing those entrepreneurial skills can be very useful to a cultural institution.
Well, I think for me, the accounting is a good foundation. I frankly, I didn't choose accounting. It's not like this is my, this is something that I'm passionate about. I was forced into that major. Actually, it was, when I first got into University of Houston, my brother actually, he actually, right 2 months before I got into the Houston, he moved back to LA. So the whole idea of me sort of like going to school in Houston is completely irrelevant. But the fact is, he had a friend to help me to choose a major. So I got picked to major in chemical engineering because it's supposed to be a major that have the highest paid job, So I majored in chemical engineering for my first year. I did really well because the classes that I took, like physics, chemistry, and calculus, I took it in high school in Hong Kong. So I basically learned nothing and just cruise. And so of course I did really well, straight A, no problem. And then have time to work part-time somewhere else and all that. But I wasn't learning anything. So I decided that it probably would make sense for me to learn something completely different. So I just made a bold move myself and switched to communication, radio, television. And it was great because at class they talk about Mary Tyler Moore, All in the Family, Archie Bunker. And I got back to my dorm room and then I turned the TV on and watched the same shows. And I think in a way, while it was funny, but it was also a great way for me to learn American culture. That had I not had the opportunity to go through all that and then use that as an excuse, as a study, I wouldn't have as much appreciation of the American culture, what's been happening in the 70s, in the United States. But it was interesting because, my brother came back a year later after I was doing great in a communication major. He, again, pulled his girl trip, the Catholic girl trip with me and said, "What are you doing? Do you seriously think that you actually, what are you going to do? What, weatherman at Corpus Christi?" So he, I think, just sort of give me some fundamental, sort of like get my head together kind of like lecture. Is that you need to get a real job, and our parents work very hard to get you to where you are today. Just make sure you get a real job. So it's like get back into chemical engineering. But I actually was competing with my friends. Straight A is not a big deal, but you have to work either full-time or part-time. In the meantime, graduated faster, in like less than 4 years. So when we were doing that I was not going to go back to chemical engineering and then having to study 4 years because I was ready to graduate in 3.5 years, And so the only major that deemed to be professional enough for my brother's standard was accounting. And that's why I majored in accounting, But I would say this, it turned out great because I really believe that as much as I did not enjoy accounting as a study, and the only classes I did not get all straight A was accounting. But I did find that had I not had the sort of comprehensive understanding of numbers, it's going to be very hard to, read financial statements. And if you have no ability to understand financials, it's going to be very hard to run a business, So I think that foundation for me is quite helpful.
So clearly, neither of you stuck with accounting forever.
I
Eli,
actually
what was the galvanizing moment for you that launched you into business?
I actually thought I was going to be a lawyer, so I was a pre-law student, but always in a hurry. So I got out of college in 3 years by taking extra courses.
This sounds
summer
somewhat
school,
familiar.
And along the way, I said, there's no way I'm going to stay in school for 7 years to become a lawyer, so I changed my major to accounting.
And then what was the moment that, if there was one, a galvanizing moment when you moved from accounting to becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, several of the clients of firm was with were home builders, and they were doing very well, and I didn't think they were very smart, frankly. And I said, maybe I can do that. So I found a partner in Donald Kaufman, who was a small home builder, and we started Kaufman Broad, and it was turned out to be a great success.
Yes,
initially in Detroit, then in California, Arizona, the East Coast, and we started a French company, Canadian company.
Quite a story. And you, Dominic, was there a moment that launched you out of the realm of accounting into banking?
I got a job before I graduated, actually I was heavily recruited by these big accounting firms. So I picked, that time, Touche Ross and now called Deloitte & Touche. The only reason my criteria is that whoever has the best green card program, that's where I go. And Touche Ross impressed me. They actually had experience to work with a foreign student and help them to get a green card. So that's how I ended up working for them. It took a while to get their green card approved. So I actually worked for them for quite a few years. I started in the Houston office for, I think, about 4.5 years or so, and then I get transferred to Los Angeles by Deloitte & Touche. Altogether, I spent almost 10 years. So it's been a long time. I was not anywhere entrepreneurial as Eli, that had that insightfulness and boom and jump and go for something much bigger. I just kept working there. I was fine. Until actually a client from Asia, I've been working with for years, has been just very, very kind, and then kept talking to me, and then helped me to sort of like be enlightened to come out. So they asked me to help them to look into investing their money into United States. And so it finally got to the point that I said, maybe I should take a risk and come out and work for this family. And if things don't work out well, I can always go back to Deloitte too. I'll be like 2 or 3 years older, so what, But if things worked out well, maybe it's something different. I mean, and I think that the rest is history. I ended up helping them to, one of the investments that I bought for them was East West Bank. And it was 1991 when I bought East West Bank for them, which got me into this business and kept doing what I'm doing.
So now you both have known each other for a bit, for a while, and if I understand correctly, you were acquaintances, but you really had a substantial interaction as a part of, Dominic, your sort of really quite innovative way of approaching fundraising for United Way in the late 90s. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Well, I first met Eli was 1999. It was April 1999. I remember because it was the premier Zhu Rongji from China, his visit to LA, and Dick Reardon, our mayor, was hosting a lunch. So Dick called me and said that I have all these Fortune 500 company CEOs who are sponsoring, but I need a Chinese-looking CEO to be on stage. So I said, okay, I'll be there. It was not appropriate because East West at that time was a very small bank. We're, I think, probably about $2 billion in size, or maybe less. But that was okay because at least, make the premier Zhu Rongji feel good. There was a Chinese American sitting there. So I actually was at the backstage lining up, greeting with the premier. Eli was standing next to me. I got a chance to talk to him a little bit. My one great moment of talking to Eli. So that was where I first met him. So in 2000, a year later, I actually was asked by United Way to be the campaign chair. And it was interesting because I had a $65 million goals that I hit. No, I don't know, 63. At least you know better. What was the goal? $65 million goal. Got to do it in 9 months. So for a little bank CEO like me, does not have the best network, it was not that easy. So we were going through a lot of ideas, and one of the thoughts I had was I put out the LA Business Journal. I said, look at the top 50 wealthiest people in town, and then just go one by one, and then we cold call them, or whoever knows. I talked to my campaign cabinets, and all of them are great members, helping me tremendously. And I said, John Anderson, I'll take him. This person, I'll take him. I said, Peter Mullen, you take all the Catholic people, And so we did all of that kind of thing. So when it comes to the number one name, Eli Bro, so I asked everybody said they know Eli Bro. I said, I know him too, Except the only thing is that nobody dared to ask because they said, well, with Eli, this is what I've heard from all my cabinet. For Eli, you just have to be very strategic. You have to have an angle because he's not going to take any nonsense about whatever. So he is really into art and culture. He's really into education. You got to find an angle. Do you have a compelling proposition? Our cabinet members, when they debate, I only met Eli briefly at that premiere when we're lining up, so I hardly ever know him. So I listened to the advice from all the people who know him well, and they said that we have to think about strategy. You got to think about angle. 2 weeks later, we talk about strategy angle. I said, hey, my campaign closed in June, and this is April. If we don't make the appointment, there's no, I don't care what strategy you have, it's not going to happen, right? So at some point in time, I got to make a move, so I just pick up the phone and I say, heck, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to make a cold call and see how it goes, Call his secretary, and then surprisingly, I got my appointment. So, and then again, my cabinet members very nicely advised me about what to say. But I said, there's no way I can learn enough about artwork that can strike a meaningful conversation. So I just stick to
You
what
weren't collecting at that time. You weren't engaged with arts yet.
Well, I buy some prints maybe. So when Eli bought, Eli paid $2.5 million for that. What was that, Liechtenstein, right?
Exactly.
With the American Express?
Exactly, yes.
I took my East West credit card and I bought the Liechtenstein for $25,000, a lithograph, so it's a little bit different.
Did you really?
But anyway, what I did was, I felt it's more important for me just to be genuine. The only thing I knew at that time was what we did with United Way. Elise and I worked together in 1998 and completely revamped the United Way model. Instead of putting the money into the big brand name like Red Cross, Children's Hospital, or American Heart Association, we said that we ought to be the organization to help the little agencies who do not have the brand name to do fundraising, who do not have the ability to actually manage their financial. United Way ought to be the big brother to help them. That's what we should be doing, and that's all we're going to do. And that, to us, helping the Los Angeles community in education, in the working poor to be more self-sufficient as a middle class. These are the kind of things, or helping them for those who do not have health care, that we support them. That's all we're going to do. We're not going to do anything else. Either people are going to listen to it and buy into it, or they're going to say that, this is not our cup of tea. That's okay. But we ought to just be genuine and say, this is what we do. And I know how to tell the stories because Elise and I worked on it together. I know exactly how to say that. So I just walk in and then basically told my stories. In the meantime, Eli was so kind. I mean, I walked in at the front desk, I saw the Russian bird. I said, whoa, finally. First time, in my life, I saw the Russian bird live. Walk into his office, I thought I could tell those are Jasper Johns, but wasn't quite sure. I wasn't going to tell him that, I think it's a Jasper Johns, because what if it's something else?
Pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
I think I
but
he
told me that, yeah, they are Jasper Johns. So he walked me through, and then we came back out and saw some Cindy Sherman and so forth. It was really enlightening, and then it was really good for me as a sort of young executive at that time to have someone at his statue in Los Angeles that he was willing to actually spend an hour with me. So that was really great. Now, but as Eli, I don't know that's his style or whatever, because I have no idea.
It's pretty familiar.
Yeah. So he listened to everything that I said and was very kind and very, very, such a great gentleman, and showed me his artwork and everything. And I said, it was very good. Never quite showed, had a poker face. There are no way for me to tell, is he going to do it? Is he not going to do it? I asked for a lot. I said, there's nobody in California have ever given $4 million to United Way. And if you give $4 million, that was the biggest gift ever in the history of United Way in California. And I would love to see that you break that history. And also helping me to break the record, So that's what I ended, and I said, no, thank you very much, and I thought it was a great meeting, I couldn't tell whether he wouldn't give me one way, the answer one way or the other. He waited and waited and waited, and it was amazing that I gave him the date. I said, I forgot exactly the date. I said, June some date. It was the deadline. And that was the day that he called back. I was in a senior management meeting with a group. He called, and my assistant came in and then said, Eli broke call. And he said, you may want to take the call for a few minutes. I said, hey guys, stop. I gotta go take the call. I went and took the call, and then first thing he told me, you may not remember, because first thing he told me was, Dominic, I know today is your deadline, and I'm gonna give you my answer. I am not gonna give you the $4 million. I was kind of expected, but I will give you 5.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
a great story, yeah. And the arc of it is familiar to me, having worked with the Browns for a long time. I don't know how often you hear that backstory, Eli, to those who are coming into your office and asking for help. So let's talk about art. Let's talk about art and culture a little bit. For you, Eli, I wondered if you could share with the audience your sort of evolution from businessman to businessman plus collector.
Well, the first collector in our family was my wife, Edie. I would go off on business trips, and she would end up buying lithographs, drawings, and so on. And I became curious about all that, to the point where I said, I want to learn more about art. I'd been involved in higher ed. I was chairman of Pitzer College. I was vice chair of state university board. So I've always been interested in things outside of the world of commerce. I became interested in art and meeting artists because they have a different view of what the world's all about. It's been quite an education. So I became interested. And Edie said the budget improved dramatically for art when I became interested. And along the way, I met some people that were very helpful to me. Taft Schreiber, who was a great collector. And we ended up, the first important work we bought was a Van Gogh drawing from 1889. And we lived with that for quite a while, and then decided to get involved in contemporary art of our times. In fact, we exchanged that drawing, which is now at the Morgan Library, for a great red Rauschenberg painting, which is now part of a show at the Museum of Modern Art. And then we moved forward in time and started meeting young artists. In the early 80s, we had the privilege of spending a lot of time with Jean-Michel Basquiat, Keith Haring, Cindy Sherman, a number of others, Julian Schnabel, David Sally, Ross Bleckner, and others. We found that very invigorating. So we moved from what we had collected into contemporary art of the 80s and got very fortunate in building a large collection of John Michel's work and Cindy Sherman, which we met, it's hard to believe, in 1982, and have collected her work ever since, as we have the other artists. And of course, Jeff Koons along the way. Right. So it's been quite a ride, and it's been very educational and very, very broadening.
And Dominic, did you meet many collectors before you started collecting a bit yourself, or was your pathway into arts and culture more through the institutions and governance of cultural institutions? Was there a moment when it really caught your attention to the point where you wanted to get involved with art?
Well, I think that from my perspective, East West Bank has a tiny little small collection, but it's focused in Chinese contemporary art. And I think the collection has really come from several influences. I mean, personally, my wife actually, she's an amateur artist, so she's always loved art. But that is really not the main reason that I'm interested to sort of like get into the art world. I think from my perspective that when I first joined East West Bank in 1991, after we acquired for an investor, I just loved the name of the bank, East West. I thought if the bank's called East West, why not just have a vision of this organization to be the bridge between the East and the West, connecting Asian to US and vice versa. And so that was the theme of the bank. So we pride ourselves as a financial bridge between the East and West. But then beyond the financial side, and I found that a lot of my associates are out there in the community actively engaged, between East and West in many different activities. So why not culture? Why not art? So as part of like expanding East-West from a financial platform into also community affairs, or art and culture, and so forth. So it just makes sense. Now, and Eli actually would be, I would say, one of the key influence to me. Why? Because You know, it's easy to say that I want to be the bridge between East and West. What do I know to be that bridge? Eli, after I, become his pal, because by asking $5 million, you know, so occasionally Eli would say, hey, Dominic, I got something that you should be looking into. You know, like I remember that he wanted to step down from Asia Society. And so Hank Greenberg.
You were both on the board of the Asia Society in New York.
So I kind of like stepped in to replace Eli at that position in New York, because Hank Greenberg was the chair, and Richard Holbrook stepped in as the new chair. So Richard came over, talked to me, and said, hey, Dominic, you're going to be the new trustee of Asia Society. I said, why? He said, because Eli thinks that you're the guy. You know, so that's how I became a trustee of Asia Society. But Asia Society is a big promoter of contemporary Chinese art. So through that organization, it got me some exposure. My previous owner of East West Bank, which again is a phenomenal collectors of Asian art, Indonesian art, Chinese contemporary art, and they have always been active in that space, and I got exposure from them too, and through them, met some Chinese contemporary artists. So it's sort of like the foundation is there because of that influence, and then Eli also asked, like, for example, Jeremy Strick to approach East West Bank, you know, in terms of me maybe participating on the board of MoCA, you know, even though I at that time wasn't ready, I thought that it would be a great idea for East West Bank to buy a collection of contemporary Chinese artwork and donate to MoCA to get something going. For us is that, you know, not only that, you know, it's too late for me to try to do anything with the Basquiat and Jasper Johns, but then on the other hand, I do find that, you know, for a purpose, you know, for the bank's purpose, if we can help promote Chinese contemporary art, we will be able to bring in, you know, the Chinese culture in a different perspective to the American society. In the same token, I think that this would help create a dialogue. And what we found is that, you know, oftentimes a lot of these Chinese contemporary art actually looks just very much the same, like art from Andy Warhol or, you know, Mark Brefford. You know, it's just very similar kind of artwork. So we just feel that we wanted to have people to look at the Chinese art, and in fact, these global artists, they're also all talented and more or less the same. And this would be a great way from East-West to provide a platform for people to appreciate art. I thought that would be a good cause, and that's why we got into it. And on top of that, what we've done is that we later on, you know, we feel that these artists need to be promoted. So we also try to help an exhibition. And then it was great that when Jeffrey Deitch, you know, again, Eli brought him in, came in town, you know, immediately came talk to me about helping to promote a Chinese artist to do a big exhibition in LA. And it was a gunpowder exhibition right in the parking lot at the Geffen Museum. And, you know, we brought in several thousand people. People have never heard of Cai Guoqiao.
I remember that night.
Yeah, never heard of Cai
Guoqiao. People.
Yeah, to see these, you know, like gunpowder rockets, you know, flying all over the, downtown, the parking lot. It was a lot of fun. But I think that those are kind of things that we at East West Bank, that we feel that it's not just great to do, it's almost like an obligation. If we really believe ourselves as the bridge between the East and West, that's something we need to promote. Mm-hmm. And that's why it gave me a good excuse to keep going into and get deeper into the Chinese contemporary art.
Mm-hmm. Eli, I wondered if we could talk a little bit about your approach to philanthropy in the visual arts beyond collecting itself, and your promotion of actually not just visual art, but the arts generally here on Grand Avenue, and why you have dedicated so much energy and so many years to helping to promote downtown before it became what it is today, and why you did that, what you saw as the potential here back then.
We moved to Los Angeles about 54 years ago. And I didn't understand Los Angeles. It didn't have a vibrant center, didn't have a real downtown. At that time, you had about less than 10,000 people living downtown. Of course, you had City Hall, and the Hall of Administration for the county had opened about 2 years earlier. And you didn't even have the music center. And I thought of all the great cities in the world, all had a vibrant center, whether it was New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Paris, London, etc. And I thought this was a big void. And I saw Los Angeles as a divided city. People from the east side didn't go west side, the west side didn't go east side, etc. So I always thought that what this region of 14 million people needed was a vibrant center. And the first time I really got involved was in the founding of the Museum of Contemporary Art back in 1979. And that turned out to be a great success along the way. Then the next time I got involved was Walt Disney Concert Hall, which was featured on the cover of New York Times Magazine. People thought it was dead, would never happen, so Dick Rude and I decided we'd raise the money to make it happen. And we did. And along the way, I said, look at all the land that the city and county has on Grand Avenue. They have no plan whatsoever. So we formed something called a Grand Avenue Committee and got the city and county and the Archbishop and others all involved in that and said, we've got to have a master plan for Grand Avenue. And we've got to make Grand Avenue the civic and cultural district of this whole region. And along the way, a lot of good things happened. The Colburn School, then we went ahead and got the Arts High School, which LAUSD had this property. They were just going to have an ordinary high school. And I came up with a thought after seeing the famed school in New York, the LaGuardia School for the Arts, that we need an arts high school. So that took some effort. We got that done. Then, of course, the Archdiocese went ahead with the new cathedral. And along the way, of course, Walt Disney Concert Hall, and a lot more is happening. And of course, as you all know, Related's going ahead with a major development across from Walt Disney Concert Hall that'll have a 350-room hotel. It'll have 220,000 square feet of high-end retail, condominiums, rentals, a motion picture theater, new restaurants, all designed by Frank Gehry. So that's all very exciting. And the population downtown from merely 10,000 is over 65,000 today. And we predict within 5-6 years it'll be like 150,000. And we've got an awful lot going on. So this is the beginning. So we have two great districts downtown. We've got the arts and cultural district here, and then we've got LA Live. And I remember when that started in 99, people from the West Side said, no one's going to go downtown to Staples. I remember that groundbreaking, and of course, we know how successful all that's been. So it's been very exciting to see all this happen. We're finally going to have a vibrant center where people from throughout the region and elsewhere are going to want to come to Los Angeles. And I'm also proud of the fact that we've become one of the 4 major cultural capitals of the world, together with New York, Paris, and London. In the performing arts, no one has a better symphony than we do, a great opera with Placido Domingo. We actually have more theatrical productions in New York or London, but they're spread out geographically. And then in the visual arts, we've really become the contemporary art capital of the world, not commercially, but otherwise. So we're seeing more and more cultural tourism than ever before. And it's exciting to see all this happening. Of course, then you have the Arts District, which is like watching what happened in Soho and Chelsea rising before our very eyes. It's very impressive.
It is remarkable. That leads me to ask a question of both of you. It's such a great opportunity to ask you this question together. How do you feel the art shapes this region economically? In other words, I'm an arts person, not a business person, but every once in a while I read about, how economies of cities like Los Angeles are changing, are not led by, any one particular industry. How does the arts in any way, do the arts in any way kind of take the place of, where corporations maybe used to shape the city in a significant way, maybe the arts in some senses in a different way shape regions economically?
Well, I think cultural tourism is going to be is becoming a big boost for the economy, together with what's happening in medical and scientific research, and those are the drivers of the economy.
Art is a key element for defining culture. I looked at it as a city without art and culture have no spirit. So no one wants to live in a place when they do not feel that they have pride and joy. And I think those people who lived in LA, I think back in the old days, always like maybe we feel like second-class citizens because art and culture were not quite up to par than some of the other cities. But if you look at where LA today, I mean, the Los Angeles residents definitely can feel proud and joy by being identified with Los Angeles. Because just as Eli just talked about, just in downtown, it's just phenomenal. Everything's just happening pretty much the last 10 years or so, and Grand Avenue have completely transformed. I remember talking to Eli many times when he showed me the map and say, this is what I'm gonna do, and I said, yeah. But, it's happening, it's finally happened, So I love it, being personally an individual that lives here for all these years, and I just feel better and better being identified with the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah. I mean, what I have found in our 18 months plus here at the Broad, the visitors who come, the demographics of the visitors who come here have led me to observe about downtown particularly that, in my view, one of the reasons downtown LA is a great place to have a cultural institution is because it's an area that's not, in a certain sense, owned by any one ethnicity. It doesn't belong to any one group of people, defined however you want to define that, whether it's economically, ethnically, demographically, in some other way. And we see that reflected in the audience, the visitors who come through the door of the Broad. We really have, our visitorship tracks quite closely to the demographic breakdown of the Los Angeles region generally. And that's, I think that may be one of the reasons, the sort of underpinning of the success of downtown is exactly what you said, Eli, that you can, this is a center of a region, not just, a city, not even just a county, but of a region. And that region is incredibly diverse. And I think that may also lead to a redefining of what a leading cultural city does, at least in the US. And I think that's a little bit what you're attempting to help spur with the collection at East West Bank. Can you tell me a little bit, Dominic, about what attracts you and East West Bank to partnering in the way that you are so generously with the Broad?
Well, I think that for us, well, number one thing is that, if you look at the Broad here, not only is just as an iconic building and with an incredible collection of great contemporary artwork that everyone around the world now wants to come to see. We have a lot of our clients actually coming from China. They come in and line up and they say, well, we don't want to line up, Dominic, what can you do to help me to get in? I said, well, I don't know, we'll see, But beyond just that, I think what I love the fact is that whenever I drove by downtown and I would see this long line. When was the last time we saw a cultural institution that actually have a long line? We do have a lot of cultural institutions throughout Los Angeles, sort of like in many different spots. From our my hometown, Pasadena, to West Los Angeles and so forth, the reality is that while we have many, for whatever reason, it's not, well, because it maybe it's a little bit too pricey for everybody to get in. Here, it's free. And I love to support things that is free. For us from East West Bank, is that why would I want to support something that only certain type of individuals can get in? Or maybe somehow it being perceived that they're so deep and it maybe have that kind of like elitism. Then I looked at it as that it doesn't quite work well with the East-West values. We wanted to have all kinds of people to be able, whenever they feel like it, if they don't mind waiting in line a little bit longer, they can go visit. And Broad is the institution that have great work, but anybody can get in. So from our perspective at East West, of course we like to support something like that. And the other thing is that also we found this institution is particularly attractive to the millennials. There tend to be a lot more young people who want to come in. And from East West Bank's point of view also is that we have plenty of great programs for senior citizens. I've yet to find something really interesting and attractive for the millennials. So this may be it. So we being part of the Bro as a partner, I think also give us the brand that, hey, you know what? We can be, just because we're a bank, it can be kind of hip too. So.
We're delighted to have East West Bank as our leading partner. Joanne and I have worked together for more than 2 decades. And when we started thinking about a museum, we said we don't want to have a typical museum, which is really, most people find museums sort of unfriendly. We said we've got to reinvent the American Museum. So we did that in both the design of the building, and also instead of having security guards, as you know, we have visitor service associates, which can engage the public, talk about the art, talk about the building, talk about downtown and so on. So it's a very different experience than going to any other museum. And we're proud of the fact that the age of our average, of our patrons here are about 13, 14 years younger than most other museums.
The average age is about 32. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very diverse.
Mm-hmm. So just to sort of ask one last question, how do you envision beyond the Broad and everything happening on Grand Avenue, how do you envision LA's future? What concerns you about LA's future in terms of the cultural sphere? And where do you see increasing potential?
Well, I feel very good about the future. No one has better universities, any city, than we have, whether it's UCLA, USC, Caltech, or the state universities and the community colleges. And then, of course, we've got the best art schools in America here, in addition to the great institutions we have here. So I think that's all going to continue to attract companies want to headquarter here. More people want to live here. I think we've got the most educated populace of any city in North America. So we've got a great future. And what we've been doing downtown is the beginning, it's not an end, it's a work in progress.
And do you have views on that,
Yeah,
Dominic?
I absolutely concur with Eli. I think that, LA is the most diverse city, in this area. And I just feel that with the diversity, you have an opportunity to have these cultural interchange, and it would actually help create more excitement in the art, in the music. And in that regard, I think it's only going to create more talents. And being Los Angeles was sort of the mecca of the content development business, and there will be more folks here that will create more interesting content. Whether it be in the art or be performing art or in the movies and then television shows and something like that. I think those activities will continue to be that leading edge to cause most people around the world want to come visit or wanted to be in LA. Very seldom you feel that people said that, I wish one day I grow up, I can move to, some Indiana, But but there will be a lot more people, out in the world, particularly the younger generations that aspire to come to LA. As long as there are more people who aspire to come here, that we naturally will gather the best talents. And we have, as Eli talked about, the higher institutions that can absorb them, can help develop them, and it's going to make this region a great region.
Well, that's a great positive note to end on, and I want to thank you both, and I want to echo Stacy's comments earlier about how excited we are about this partnership, and we thank East West Bank, and this has been really illuminating, and thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be a part.